We are on the loading screen. I wonder who chose this map. I think that it's much more likely that this map was probably picked by MaNa, I'm going to say. Because he went for a 2-base play on Belshir. It would be good to go on this map purely from knowing the players. Let's face it. Red, he likes the macro up. He likes the late game. That's where he wants to get to. So by going for a map like Neoplanet S, you really make it quite difficult for that to occur. And that's kind of playing the player with a map choice. So I'm reckoning that it was MaNa's map pool, but yeah. Why don't you go ahead, take it away, Nathanius, introduce these two players.
My pleasure, Metals. Spawning in the top right position of the map that is Neoplanet S, we have our red Zerg player, the king of drones himself, with a very nice defense last game. It is Liquid's Rhett. And spawning in the bottom left position as the blue Protoss player, coming in for Mouse Sports. He needs a bit of a pause. It is MaNa.
And apparently MaNa is having some really bad lag problems. So, I don't think any of us are referees, unfortunately, but I know from yesterday the best thing to do is if there are problems, we need to leave it paused and basically see what that happens. And hopefully that does get resolved. So I don't believe any of us are referees, unfortunately. None of the admins are in this game, so we can't actually tell MaNa that. But yesterday there was a similar issue with Shuttle versus Uza, where Uza had quite a few lag issues. And therefore, basically, because the game continued, they couldn't do anything about it because the game was played out. Uza basically said he would continue from the pause, whereas if you don't continue, if you just stop the game, then they'll happily play it ready to go. So Red is just putting down the firm hand of the law, being like, everyone but the English stream, get out. They want to try and minimize the lag. So there they will go, unfortunately. I'm feeling pretty privileged right now.
Nah, well, I mean, it's just sometimes the wonderful fun bus of esports, you got to back it up a little bit. So hopefully this will at least resolve the issues enough that MaNa will be able to comfortably play here. Of course, when it comes to even when you're broadcasting tournaments and such, you know, it's always got to be about the player's comfort because, I mean, if a player can't play optimally, it's really going to mess with their game, and that messes with everybody's experience.
Yeah, it's not just... The fact of the matter is, it's their career. It's their income as well from tournament winnings and things like that. But also, it's really important to note that for us, the viewer as well, if they're having lag issues, we're not going to be seeing the best games possible. And that is what we want to see. But now, we've got MaNa coming in, just getting a quick scout out, making sure nothing untoward is happening. Going to see Red probably chuck down a 15, or maybe even a 14 pool. It will be a 14 pool now because he hasn't started an additional drone. So he's just playing it really cautious. Meanwhile, MaNa, he went for a pylon on the low ground at the natural base. He just wants to expand out. He wants to get it onto 2 bases as quickly as possible, and will probably go for a 2-base play.
Yeah, it's a bit of an interesting thing to sell, though, because with the 14 pool, he could be trying to use the fact that this map has a very short rush distance to go for some quick Zergling attacks, which is why MaNa is going to throw on this Forge. Very, very reasonable decision to be made here by our Polish Protoss player. And I feel like this is going to normalize, but MaNa should try to pylon block this expansion because he was... Oh, the hatchery does get down pretty easily, but he wasn't able to go for Nexus first, so his expansion gets delayed, and Rhett, well, he's unabated.
Yeah, he's going to be quite happy that that wasn't delayed. The probe is going to come up towards the 3rd base location, just to make sure that that definitely won't come down. Meanwhile, the Overlord on its way through for Red. He'll see that it was a Forge first opening, so a little bit more cautious, a little bit more safe. You don't want to take any risks early on. This is, of course, game 3 of 3, and that means that whoever wins this will advance in the bracket. Whoever loses this game will be knocked down into the Challenger group stages. For the moment, though, two Zerglings on the way are going to pick off this scouting probe. No gas taking yet for Rep, which is to be expected. Will he go for that super quick 3rd? Well, the drone's being pulled, so most likely yes. But as we mentioned earlier, Neoplanet S, it can be quite awkward to secure a 3rd for every race, just due to the positioning and the back entrance into it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the 3rd hatchery is on the way for Rhett, but I mean, as far as Zerg goes, getting 3rd bases is just what they do. Queen production has begun, and as far as builds that MaNa could go for, this is not the worst map for something like a Century or Mortal play. I've actually kind of seen it pop up a couple of times, but I feel like Stargate play might be what he chooses to go for. This is actually a complete wall off from MaNa. I'm not 100% sure. I feel like there might be a tiny gap there where that gateway is on the top side.
I believe there is a really small gap. I think it is. It's one of these weird maps where the graphics make things look a lot smaller than they should be, but there is a Zealot rally there as well, so most certainly is going to be a gap. Now, ultimately, we've got Red in a situation where he's getting up his third. He should be looking to get his first 2 gas and about 10 supply, and he should know that MaNa unlikely to try and take a third, going to go for some kind of 2 base. His cybernetics core right at the back of his base, the Overlord coming through and in, just being like, I can't see anything. That in itself is really frustrating because Red wants to try and identify what's coming out. Is it going to be a Stargate? Is it going to be DTs or something like that? Those are all the sort of things that Red wants to identify so he can prepare appropriately for it should it be coming out. And it's going to be a Stargate here, right to the back edge, and the Overlord is not going over there.
That's a pretty critical thing to pick up on, of course. You know, if you can get out 4 or 5 Phoenix and just kind of pocket them away and not let your Zerg opponent know that you're going for that Stargate play, they can be so easy to run in, pick off some Queens, grab a ton of drones, and overall just do a lot of damage. But the double gas follow-up is pretty normal as well. Should see a robotics facility right around the time that the Phoenix production becomes manageable with the income. But it's one of the reasons why he likes to go for the Nexus first, is to get those faster follow-ups. But MaNa is going to send a probe out towards the top, and these scouting Zerglings should be able to pick that off.
Yeah, that probe is not going to have too much fun here. We've got a Roach Burn also on its way down for Red, which isn't the best response to a Stargate opening, let's face it. He would be a lot better if he had, say, some Hydras out or something like that, but at the moment the Mothership Core is just being used to grab vision up on this cliff to force back that Overlord, preventing getting any information. The first Phoenix is now in production. We've also got +1 getting researched here for MaNa, and now Red, he's just got to really identify what's coming down. He's getting his lair. He still hasn't got any good scouting information. The Overlord is coming back through, but will once more not be able to see that Stargate. It is on its way over there, but with the Stalker and the Sentry, will it get there in time? Yes, it does see it. So that is the key thing right now for Red. He's aware that that Stargate's coming out. He saw it getting chrono boosted, and I believe he could just see that the Phoenix was coming out. He should have spotted that too. So will he chuck down any Spore Crawlers? Maybe, but he doesn't have to worry too much. And now he's identified what's coming. Everything's a lot nicer now for Red.
Yeah, having access to the information is so important, and we should see him get down some Spore Crawlers for each base. He already has one queued up to go by the natural expansion, and he's got his lair on the way, so he's playing his normal game. He has the Roach Horn as done as well. Could see him move into something like Roach Speed, play a more standard Roach Hydra opening, but Red's kind of shown us a couple different looks so far this series, so I honestly wouldn't be surprised by basically anything that he did. The Mothership Core using the Scout as well, so he's going to have knowledge of this third base now. He's like, okay, this is about as much as I expected. And some Roaches and Zerglings are on the way for Ret, but at the same time, MaNa, he is going into that robotics facility switch.
Yep, and this is a nice thing to do for, because Red, he's starting up his Hydrogen straight away. He's got Roach Speed coming down too, which will be nice to hold off at the moment, but as we said last game, Hydras don't really fare too well against Colossi. So if that switch does come in quickly, it will be quite good. But there's a window of opportunity that Red can try to exploit. This Queen of the Natural Base is going to get taken out by these Phoenix, and that of course hurts Red's production, lowers the lava count. He's going to go for the one in the main as well, and there's only one Spore Crawler there, so with good micro on those Phoenix, should be absolutely fine. Red now down to only a single Queen, really damaging any lava production that he's got for quite a substantial amount of time, but he's pushing in towards the natural Nathanis.
Yeah, and I mean, he can't really do too much. There's the Photon Cannon there. He's going to try to grab the Forge, but that's not really going to be an option. So, pretty good pickup here from MaNa, literally. He's going to grab a Roach as well. You can see kind of wiggling in the air as it gets poked to death. And I kind of like this. He's picking up the stray units. He's just really utilizing the Phoenix to the maximum efficiency, saying, okay, well, if you've got any low hit point units, I can just pick them off. And I think this is the time MaNa says, okay, it might be Neoplanet S, but I'm going to try to get a third base up.
We've got to at some point. You know Ret's been on 3 bases for quite a long time. Ret, though, he's busy getting his Spire down. Really smart move, because he should be predicting that there's going to be this Colossus follow-up, and therefore he needs to get Corruptors out, just as we saw in the previous game on Belshir. MaNa needs to stay proactive, though, with these Phoenix. He needs to try and do as much damage as possible, flying very close to the Hydras. Luckily, they are not doing too much there. Groove Spine is done for the Hydralisks. Muscular Augments is coming down as well, otherwise known as Hydra Speed, but a push down towards his third base of MaNa. A couple of Speedlings, a couple of Roaches, and actually the Immortal at the back, taking quite a lot of fire from those Zerglings. If that goes down, that's a big loss for MaNa, and it is going to fall. Nice little snipe off there from the Liquid player.
a really great catch there. You could not really afford to just lose an Immortal like that. It's going to make this next attack from Rhett, the Hydra Ling Force, is going to be quite hard to deal with. The first Colossus is now on the way, but he won't have range either, and the Hydras have range, so that means they have the same range, which means that fighting this is going to be so much more difficult. Good force fields will keep that Immortal safe for now, but there's a lot of units here for Rhett. He could just try to push towards the natural if that whole army is going to camp there at the third base, in all honesty.
And this now straight away separates MaNa from his natural base and his army. Really difficult to come through from this. The Hydras are still there. The force field count will start dwindling. The Phoenix trying to lift up some of the Hydralists in order to take them out. There's not that many units here at the moment for Rhett, but he's got a handful of Speedlings coming in towards the natural base, trying to pick off a couple of probes, just whittling down MaNa's forces. More reinforcements are streaming across the map, and the first Colossus will come out, but there's a lot of roaches there. The Immortal really needs to do quite a considerable amount of damage, but I think MaNa should just be able to hold here. Rhett being forced back, but this is allowing him to secure his fourth base, and he's still getting more and more units out. The first Corruptors should get started shortly, and he's got +1 air attack as well.
Yeah, Rhett's got 70 drones. Whenever Rhett goes to be aggressive against you, you know he's not doing some sort of weird low drone count all-in. He's making workers. And now he's making roaches. And when you make a lot of roaches after you make a lot of workers, well, you got a lot of roaches, and this can make things a bit difficult for MaNa to deal with. Roach run by at the third base, and they are going to be able to do a nice little bit of puking there on those probes, taking out a few of them. Then at the same time, force fields have to be used to keep Rhett away. And Corruptor's production begins to start, and this is where things can get a little bit dicey here for MaNa. We saw those Corruptors do a lot of work in game number 2.
Yeah, and they weren't even controlled perfectly in game number 2. They could have been a lot better. So Rhett, he is now in quite a nice spot. If we take a quick look at the army supply, it's currently 90 to Rhett to just 56 of MaNa. The worker supply as well, Rhett up to 78 drones to MaNa's only 55 probes. These Phoenix are still out on the field. We'll pick a couple of the drones that we're transferring down to this fourth base. But Rhett, he's got the Corruptors. They're going to push them straight back out again.
Yeah, those Corruptors basically saying, yeah, get out of here. And there's a big Roach Ling Hydra force moving across the field for Rhett. He got temporarily supply blocked, but I feel like in terms of the amount of Colossi here, we've just got 2. So this number of Corruptors is going to be able to do a lot of damage. If he gets his army in a good arc, he can do a lot more. There's not any splash here. And there he goes, picks off the Mothership Core. Rhett's got to get his forces concentrated, though. He has a big swell of Roach Ling on the top. He's going to run in towards the natural, and he still has a bit of a force that can run in towards this third base, and now, oh, MaNa, he's got to watch. He is in the open, and this is where force fields become less and less cost-effective, and now Rhett's just going to dive in on top of those Colossi, bringing in the rest of his forces. Some good force fields by MaNa, though, are going to be able to hold a lot of these units at bay, but the Corruptor's using that corruption in all of these units, and Rhett is going to push through. He is maxed out. MaNa about to drop below 100 supply.
Yeah, this is it. Rhett is going to be able to take this series 2-1 now. There is nothing really left here at all for MaNa. He's got a handful of Stalkers, but when you're 100 supply behind your opponent, the Zerg player still up on a lovely drone count. Rhett can just hold down that Arky. He can get loads of roaches out and just push forward. All of the Colossi are now dead, and it is, unfortunately now for MaNa, just a matter of time. And MaNa actually lagging there as well, so it must be on his side that the problems were coming, which I did think, because Rhett wasn't experiencing any of the lag earlier either.
Yeah, MaNa's sadly notorious for his computer issues in online tournaments. I've actually worked with him before and had that issue, but it does look like Rhett is going to be able to push in towards the natural. There's a lot of Stalkers here from MaNa, but he doesn't have Blink. He can't really micro these too much. All he can do is try to run away from these speed roaches, and that is not going to be a very cost-effective proposition for him, as Rhett is still maxed out.
Yeah, Rhett, he's just going to keep pumping units. He can keep pumping units. He's got a nice bank sitting up there. 1,500 minerals, about 700 gas there. And MaNa, he's got no AoE. And MaNa, even with good luck, Rhett will now, as MaNa said, be going up against Vortex in the next round. Rhett taking this 2-0. 2-1, sorry.